Hello, everyone. Good day to all of you. I hope all of you are safe and well. Um, I hope you can see our screens and hear us loud and clear. So we're just waiting for Vijay. Hi, Romel. Good to see you. Um, okay. I hope Vijay is ready. Oh, fantastic. He's there. Hi, Vijay. Okay. So you can start off with the introduction part, and then myself and Siddharth will be moving forward with the presentation. So if you want to say a few words about ITG and Manage Engine, please go ahead. It's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Vivin. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Oh, yes. You're loud and
Awesome.
clear. Yeah.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Just as a quick introduction, my name is Vijay Africa. I am the managing director. I cover Singapore and Malaysia, but I'm also the chief technology officer for business as well as IT solutions. I just wanted to say thank you for spending the next couple of hours with us. We have a jam-packed next couple of hours to talk about a whole array of stuff. We talk about 6 Active Directory security events that have hit the mainstream in 2020, and I'm guessing that's going to be your topic, Vivin, right? Okay. And then we'll also talk about SIM in terms of data analytics and action. And we have the honor of having Sid, who's a product expert from AD Solutions as well, to talk about that. I want to call your attention to something that was recently shared to me by Romel. It's a very interesting article, and I'd like to highlight a number, and that number is 82. 82% to be specific. And 82% of Philippine organizations have actually fallen victim to public cloud security, cybersecurity incidents. And I had to check the article a couple of times just to see the validity of that number, because 82% essentially is 8 out of 10 organizations. And that in itself is a good reason to join us again in this session. But whatever reason you're here, I think, again, you'll find a lot of value to make sure that you don't fall into that 8 out of 10. And again, we have a great bunch of very knowledgeable speakers who are joining us from India, from Manage Engine. Again, Vivin and Sid, thanks for spending the next couple of hours with us. So for all those that are attending, thanks again. And I guarantee you a very, again, action-packed, very informative, and a very interesting next couple of hours. We hope to hear much from you in the Q&A, but in the meantime, let me pass on the mic back to Vivin. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Thank you very much, Romel, for your participation. So in case you need to contact anyone from the ITG team, you know the faces now, okay? So you have Romel and Vijay. So thank you so very much, Romel, once again. So we'll now move forward with the actual sessions. We'll be, now that we're working from home, we'll be cutting our video feeds just so that it doesn't take too much of a bandwidth. So once again, a quick introduction for my colleague and good friend Siddharth Sharath Kumar. So he'll be having the second topic. So we have 2 topics for today. We'll start off with basic security auditing, and then we'll move on to the much advanced stuff. We'll be talking a bit about SIEM and how do you make, how do you derive the insights that you want from the volumes of data that is getting generated in your organization. So it's going to be an informative session. So please stay with us, okay? So we are cutting our video feeds, and in case you have any questions, please make use of the chat option, okay? So a quick audio check. I'd like to let you know that we are working from our homes, and there might be a bit lag in audio and video certain times. Please bear with us. The recording of the session will be shared, and you'll also be getting the slide deck as well, okay? So if you are hearing us loud and clear, and if you can see the screen, please make use of the chat screen and send us a quick yes. We'll be taking things forward, okay? So I'm just waiting for a couple of yeses just to make sure that everything is right even before we move forward. Oh, fantastic. Lots of yeses. Lots of yeses. All right. Thank you. Okay. I hope all of you are safe and well. Please stay safe, take care of yourself. And now the first session for today's online seminar is going to be 6 Active Directory security events that have hit the mainstream in 2020. All right. And my name is Vivin Satyan, and I've been working as a technology consultant in the Active Directory team of AD Solutions for almost 9 years now. I do 2 things as a technology consultant. One is I take part in seminars and webinars hosted by Manage Engine across the globe, and I talk about the Manage Engine offerings. And one good thing about such events is I get to interact with a lot of people like you from the IT fraternity, and it's always been a 2-way learning experience. Okay? So you give me some of your problems, your technical problems, whether it be related to Active Directory or cybersecurity or log management or Office 365 management. You give me some of your problems and we try and do our best to give you solutions. So it's always been a learning experience. Now, with that little bit of experience in hand, what I'm about to do here is I thought I'll focus on Active Directory. Now that most of the organizations, at least 6 out of 10 organizations have deployed Active Directory as an identity repository platform, I thought we'll first focus on Active Directory and Azure. And what are the 6 Active Directory and Azure events that you should be focusing on as an Active Directory administrator, even in the year 2020. So that's going to be the topic for the first session, followed by a much more advanced and informative SIEM session by Sid. Okay. All right. Now, what's the whole idea here? Now, the whole point of this session is to keep things really simple. Now, you might be wondering, okay, we are in the year 2020 and people are moving to the cloud. People are talking about single sign-on, enterprise level security and all that. Is it still relevant to talk about Active Directory security in the year 2020? If that's your question, the answer is yes. Active Directory security is still relevant today because, as I mentioned earlier, at least 6 out of 10 organizations still rely on Active Directory as an identity repository. Okay, so it's really important that we secure Active Directory. Now, we'll start off with a quick experiment by showing how an insider can compromise your Active Directory infrastructure in less than 5 or 10 minutes, okay? And then we'll take it from there. The whole idea of the experiment is not to show you how vulnerable Active Directory is, but the whole idea of the experiment is to show you that there has to be certain security measures that we'll have to take in order to ensure that the basics of Active Directory security is set right. And that's exactly the whole idea of the 6 alarms, which I'm about to share with you, or 6 key events, which I want you to set in your organization. Okay, so let's now start with a small experiment by actually cracking Active Directory. Okay, now this is a 2012 R2 server, and by the way, this is a domain controller. So I am a regular user. Let's say you add me to an account operators group. Okay, you don't add me to domain admins, you don't add me to enterprise admins, you just add me to the account operators group. Now, what that means is if I am a member of the account operators group in your organization, I gain access to one of your servers. Okay, you'll be able to log on to the servers or domain controllers if you're an account operator. And when you log on to one such servers, you get access to this tool that you see on the screen, which is the command prompt. Okay? Now let's see what an insider like an account operator can do, having access to a domain controller and also having access to a utility or a tool like command prompt. Okay. Now what I am going to do is I'm trying to compromise the Active Directory infrastructure. Okay. Now what exactly do I mean by compromising an Active Directory infrastructure? You might have seen these files. Okay. I'm trying to copy the ntds.dit file, which is nothing but your Active Directory database, which is inside C drive, Windows, ntds, and then you have the ntds.dit file. Okay. Now this dit file is your Active Directory database, which means if you have 5,000 employees in your organization, the information about all the 5,000 employees is right there in this file. Okay. And this file also has something else apart from usernames. It has password hashes. Okay. You heard me right. It does not have the actual passwords, but your passwords are hashed and stored inside the same ntds.dit file, which I, as an insider, am trying to compromise. Okay, so I need another file to actually unlock or open this specific dit file. Okay, And the key to opening the ntds.dit file is in another file called the system file. So if you go to Windows system32 config, and then you go to the system file, this system file contains the keys, what we call the key hives, to actually unlock whatever is in the ntds.dit file. Okay. So if you're trying to compromise an Active Directory infrastructure, or if I'm trying to do that as an insider, I would like to gain access to the DIT file and the system file. Now, one good thing about the security aspect of these two files is you cannot just do a right click, go to copy, and then you'll not be able to just, paste the file anywhere you want. So if you try to paste the Active Directory database while the server is still running, when you try to paste this, you get an error message saying the action cannot be completed because the file is open in EFS, which is nothing but an operating system level encryption on the Active Directory database. Okay? No matter how many times you try, you'll still not be able to paste the file because the file is in use. Okay? But you need those files. And having said that, you're not going to install another software on a server just to crack those files, because the minute I install another software, the administrators are alerted, okay? And the administrators know who installed the file and what's going on and all that. So you'll not be able to do that. So what can you do, on the other hand, is you can probably open up a utility, a Microsoft utility like Command Prompt, which most of the account operators gain access to by default, and then use a utility called VSS Admin. Now, VSS Admin is a Microsoft utility which helps you take a copy of any storage volume that you want that is in the network. Okay, so I am going to use VSS Admin and then try and copy the Active Directory database, and I'm going to also try and copy the system file, because these two are the files that we require in order to begin our attack kill chain. Okay, so VSS Admin, create shadow for the entire C drive, because both my files, the Active Directory database and the system file, is inside the C drive. So I need to create a shadow copy for the entire C drive here. Okay, so successfully created shadow copy for the entire C drive. Now you need to notice something here. Okay, inside the shadow copy of a storage, C colon is represented as the shadow copy volume name. It's represented as this one. So moving forward, wherever you need to type C colon, you need to replace C colon with the shadow copy volume name. Okay, so let's try and copy the files that we want. So I just do copy, and I'm going to copy this, the shadow copy volume name of C colon here. So, all right, shadow copy volume name of C colon copied. And inside the C drive, I need to go to the Windows folder, and inside the Windows folder, I have the ntds folder, and the file that I'm trying to copy is the ntds.dit file. And for the sake of this demonstration, I'd like to copy this file on, paste this file on my desktop. Okay, all right. Now, I just want you to have a closer look at my desktop. Okay, you don't find any files here naming ntds.dit. You don't find the Active Directory database here. But even I tried to copy this file using a right-click operation. So I tried to do this, a copy, and I tried to paste the file. It didn't work. So what I'm about to do here is I just hit enter, and it says one file copied. And you might have noticed that I have the Active Directory database right now. Right now, the server is still running, but I've managed to copy the ntds.dit file, which has all your employee information and username and password hashes. Okay. I need to just repeat the same experiment for the system file. That's it. Okay. Now, when you have these two files, probably you can send this file as an attachment to your Gmail or Hotmail or whatever it is, and then perform an offline attack. Okay. So far, we've been doing an online attack. So you can copy those two files and take it back to your home and perform an offline attack. So I'm just going to skip step number 2, which is nothing but extracting the contents from the ntds.dit file, because that's not the whole idea of this exercise. So I'll show you how the password hashes inside this specific file looks like. Okay, I've already extracted the password hashes, so I've done that exercise. So this is how the password hashes look like. Okay, so these are not the actual passwords. These are just the password hashes. Okay. So let's say you have 10 employees, and now I have the password hashes of all those 10 employees. I'm just one step closer to knowing what their actual passwords are. Okay. So I just do copy. The first thing that I need to do is I need to crack these hashes because I need to know what the actual passwords are. For which, again, open up a free password hash cracker, free, something like crackstation.net, because I play with Crackstation a bit. So if at all you're interested, you can also go to crackstation.net. This is a free resource, and then study something about the password hashing algorithms and the various standards in password hashing and all that. Okay, this is a good place. So I'm trying to crack the hashes. So I'm pasting all the hashes here. I confirm that I'm not a robot. And when I hit crack hashes, I'll be able to know what the passwords are. Okay, so I have the hash, I have the algorithm that was used for hashing, and I have the actual password right here. Okay, now just think about it for a quick second. I have the passwords right here, and I know what the usernames are in your Active Directory infrastructure. And with a bunch of usernames and passwords in my hand, I can probably do anything by logging on to this server. Okay, I can be an enterprise admin, I can be a regular user, I can impersonate as another user, and you're not going to find my presence in the infrastructure as a malicious insider, because I've not done some fancy stuff. All I've done is I used the command prompt and I copied 2 files and took them offline. That's it. Okay. So I really believe that we should be focusing on Active Directory security, because now most of the organizations have a hybrid setup. They have Active Directory, they have Office 365, they have Exchange Online and all that. So if your Active Directory is not secured on its basic level, then it's going to be a bit tough for us to secure the rest of the infrastructure. Okay, so we'll first start off with the idea of Active Directory auditing, and then we'll talk a bit about security log, because security log is where all the information pertaining to Active Directory auditing is there. So who, what, when, and where in Active Directory stored right here. And I'm going to share with you 6 alarms that are still relevant in the year 2020 when it comes to Active Directory and Azure. And then we'll be talking a bit about how do you leverage machine learning in order to detect anomalies. Okay, so these are the 4 topics that we'll be discussing all throughout the session. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Vijay at the start of the session was mentioning about the 82 number. Okay, 82% of the Philippines organizations are under some form of cloud attack and all that. And the same holds good for the rest of the world. Okay, but just because we are setting 6 alarms, it doesn't mean that we are 100% attack proof. No software can claim that. It is the responsibility of the administrators to strive on a regular basis to try and keep things at par with whatever is happening in the security landscape. Okay, so what exactly is the idea of Active Directory auditing? Now, when it comes to Active Directory, we are trying to audit 4 primary objects. Okay, we're trying to audit users, groups, computers, and group policy. So any change that happens to these 4 objects, especially a password policy, or let's say a security setting inside a GPO, we're trying to audit all that in real time. Okay? And when I say auditing something in real time, you're talking about loads and loads of data getting generated. Okay, so the whole idea of the session is to not just generate data and leave it as such. The whole point here is to how do you get insights from the volumes of data so that you'll be able to take necessary actions. So from data to insights so that you'll be able to take some actions. Okay, not just manual actions. I'm talking about automatic CTAs. Okay, so when something goes wrong and the application detects it, how do you actually trigger an automatic call to action for that to mitigate that specific event? Okay, so we are not here to talk about generic events or any in-between events. We are here to talk about indicators of attacks, serious IOAs of an organization. All right. When you talk about Active Directory auditing, where exactly do you hit the record button? Because only when you enable auditing, your servers will actually start recording events, okay, of user creation, deletion, file copied, file deleted, and all kinds of events. For that to get logged somewhere, you need to hit the record button, okay? And the record button in Active Directory is really in one place, okay? And the record button in Active Directory to enable recording is right here in your group policy. Okay. Now this is the group policy management console, and if you edit a group policy that is linked to your domain, you have two types of configurations: computer configuration and user configuration. And when you expand computer configuration, right, now that we're talking about enabling auditing, and when you expand the Windows part, security settings, local policies, you have something called audit policy right here. Okay. The audit policy setting, the 9 settings that you see on the screen, are the basic recording functionalities given to us by Microsoft, which was okay until the year 2006. Okay. Basic recording is no longer relevant in 2020. In 2020, if you're talking about recording or enabling auditing, you'll have to not just talk about basic audit policy, you'll have to switch from basic audit policy to advanced audit policy right here. Okay. So you have 2 audit policies. One is very basic and the other one is advanced audit policy. So my request to you is, please start using the advanced audit policies. Please configure them as per your requirement. Okay? The benefit of using the advanced audit policy is you get to record a lot more events. Okay? We are talking about category-based recording. You have a category for account logon, account management, even policy change and privilege use. Okay? So for every category that you click, you'll be able to see subcategories here. Okay? So we get more options to record. All right. Now, I've told you where to actually switch on the recording. Okay, it's simple. You just open up a GPA that is linked to your domain, and then you go to the advanced policy configuration, and you can probably enable any setting that you want. You can look for success or failure, or just success, depending on your requirement. Okay, so let's say you have switched on the record button. Where do all these events get logged? Well, again, inside the same server, you have this utility called Event Viewer. And inside of Event Viewer, we are interested in one specific log, which is the security log inside the Event Viewer. Okay? The security log has all the information that you want. Okay? It has information pertaining to process creation, user log off, log on, all kinds of information. So this is really important. Okay? Now, this is the single source of truth. This is all you need to start your auditing process. Okay, you have defined what category to audit, and you have all the information right here. Now, I'm just going to ask you to think about a specific problem with regards to security log. And now, if you have a security log in place, why do we even need another software for our auditing Active Directory, right? So we have enabled the audit policy. We have enabled the advanced audit policy configuration. Of course, we're talking about giving precedence to the advanced audit policy, and everything gets logged in the Event Viewer. So perfect, okay? So why not we use the Event Viewer to understand what exactly is happening in an Active Directory, okay? When did the user log in, who deleted a file, etc. I see 2 challenges for that to happen. The first challenge is every domain controller has a unique security log, and the second challenge is the size limitation of the security log. Let me tell you what I'm referring to. First problem, every domain controller has a unique security log. Okay? Now the security log that you see in this specific domain controller does not replicate to any other servers. Okay? Now what that means is, let's call this server A. Okay? I log into server A and I delete 10 users. Now the event related to the deletion of 10 users will be captured in this security log that you see on the screen on server A, okay? But if I log into server B or server C and open up the same security log, I'll not be able to find the events there because the events that are tracked in this specific log does not replicate to other logs. That's problem number 1, okay? Problem number 2 is the security log can get as big as 300 megabytes. Okay, you heard me right. We are talking about this in the year 2020, 300 megabytes. So as and when the size of the file reaches 300 megabytes, you have a new security log. And then after another 300 megabytes, you have another log. okay? So we are talking about size limitations here. That's why I really believe that Event Viewer is something like a state-of-the-art CCTV camera that you have installed in your organization to capture everything, okay? To audit everything. But the limitations of the security log, the size limitation and the replication limitation, make it impossible for the Event Viewer to give you the insights that you're looking for, okay? That's why 13 years ago, we introduced a tool to audit not just Active Directory, but a lot more in your infrastructure. We introduced a tool named AD Audit Plus, okay? AD Audit Plus is a tool that could help you audit in real time your Active Directory infrastructure, and also at the same time you'll be able to audit information pertaining to Azure. It can audit your member servers, workstations, file servers, NetApp, and EMC files, okay, in real time. And then it can process the information by dumping it in its own database. So even if the event is overwritten, even if the logs don't replicate, even if the size of the security log is 300 megabytes, it doesn't matter, because we are capturing events in real time and storing it in our own database, and then give it to you in the form of meaningful reports and alerts. We are talking about email and SMS alerts here, okay? And you can even forward important events to a central log repository such as your SIM, okay? And the application also takes care of the archiving process as well. So we are talking about end-to-end event security, right from capturing the events to processing the events and also to archiving events. Now we are going to take a look at 6 important events, and I'm going to show you how AD Audit Plus helps you track all those 6 events, okay? Now please bear something in mind. You might already be using another solution in your organization that has nothing to do with ManageEngine. That's perfectly fine. All I'm requesting you to do is see whether these 6 events can be put to use in your infrastructure. If you can do that, I'll be more than happy, okay? Because I really believe that these 6 events are important. We are going to start off with account lockouts. How do you investigate an account lockout situation? And we're going to be talking about server or PC logon activity. I mean, how do you track suspicious logon activity? Users logging into your servers at 10:30 on a Sunday night is not a regular activity if there is no maintenance planned, okay? And security group changes. If I add a user to an application admin group or an enterprise admin group, and that user is a regular user, are you setting alarms in order to get notified about such changes in real time? And let's say most of us are working from home, or some of us are back to office now, but still GPO plays a really important role. Okay? GPOs can actually facilitate an external person taking control of your infrastructure, okay? So if I change a setting inside a GPO that is going to impact all your users, are you auditing those settings in real time? Okay. And we need to talk something about unsecure LDAP bindings, because if a computer is talking to your Active Directory, chances are the computer is talking to Active Directory using the protocol LDAP, okay? So that's the client server protocol, LDAP. So how do you know whether your domain controllers are allowing unsecure LDAP bindings, okay, that will give rise to man-in-the-middle attack, okay? So how do you audit all that? I have 2 specific event IDs to share with you. And we need to audit PowerShell as well, because PowerShell can be weaponized. I can actually execute a PowerShell script for extracting all the user information, and then probably the other, other information put into the user. So are we actually auditing PowerShell? So these are the 6 events that we're going to talk. Let's dive right into the session. Okay. Now the first action that I'd like to discuss with you is something related to account lockouts. Okay, let's say a user's account gets locked up. How do you understand whether the lockout is something legit or is it a bit suspicious? Well, I have 2 event IDs to share with you, 4740 and 4625, that gets logged in the security log of the event viewer, okay? Now with these 2 event IDs, AD Audit Plus can give you something like this, okay? So I'm just going to go to AD Audit. I'm going to the reporting section of AD Audit here. Now the reporting section of AD Audit has 2 modules, the Active Directory module and you have the Azure module under one roof. Now we are trying to investigate a lockout. A user's account has been locked out, and how do you know whether the lockout is suspicious or legit? So I'm just going to, I have all the categories on the left side. I have volumes of reports out of the box. I have at least 200 real-time auditing profiles. But if you do not know where the exact report is, you can always make use of the search option right here in order to look for the exact report. So I search for account lockout analyzer. You see, I just type the keyword account, and I have 19 results for the keyword account, and the first result is account lockout analyzer. So we're trying to understand the source of the lockout here. Okay. Excuse me. Now, the name of the report or the auditing profile is account lockout analyzer, and can give me details pertaining to yesterday or last 60 minutes or for any custom time period that I want. Okay. Now let's say a user Hussey calls me saying that the account is locked out and he's not able to log in. The first thing I do is I open up account lockout analyzer and I check whether the user's account is really locked out. Yes, the application says so. I see which machine was used for authentication, when was the lockout triggered, and I also get to know about other information like the event ID and all that. Okay? But what is even more important is I have something called analyzer details. Okay, let me tell you what this does. When I hit analyzer details for the user Hussey who's logged out, okay, let's try and do this here. So for the user Hussey, AD Audit Plus looks at 9 different places in your infrastructure to see whether Hussey's account is configured in any of those 9 places that is actually triggering the lockout. It looks at Windows services for Hussey's account. It looks at scheduled tasks, network drive mappings that have the old password of Hussey that is triggering the lockout. It looks at any active logon sessions. Okay. It also looks at COM objects, process list, and your applications. It also looks at the applications in order to understand whether Hussey's account is configured in any of those applications that are actually triggering the lockout. And if you have OWA and ActiveSync, we'll also explore that as well. And then for the objects where Hussey's account is not configured, you'll have something called nothing found. Okay, so you have nothing found for OWA, ActiveSync, and COM objects. But you can see that for network drive mappings in the Z drive, Hussey's account is configured. Probably this is why Hussey's account is getting locked out. Okay, and you also could see that scheduled tasks has Hussey's account, and the Windows service is running in the name of Hussey is actually having the old credential. Okay, so you know where Hussey's account is configured, and you know how to now fix the problem, okay, of an account lockout problem. If you feel that the action is a bit suspicious, you can always track the logon history of the users. Try and understand whether the user has tried attempting to log on to any of your confidential servers. Okay, that's the logon history part. So with just 2 event IDs, 4740 and 4625, you'll be able to analyze 9 different components pertaining to a user's lockout situation. Okay, this is alarm number 1. Now the second alarm that I want you to set in your infrastructure is something related to logon. Okay. And of course, the deck will be shared, so you need not make note of these event IDs. If you feel that these event IDs are important, you can maybe look at the deck at a later point in time. So I have 4 event IDs pertaining to logon category that could actually give you insights on user logon activity. Okay, so we have 2 categories of report: user logon reports that could give you information pertaining to failures due to bad password, failures due to bad username, and all that. Okay, workstation logon activity. If someone is logging onto a domain controller, you need to track who's logging onto the domain controller. So you'll be able to track all such logon activity of your users. Okay, so when you talk about auditing logon activity, please take a look at these 2 reports: logon failures due to bad password and logon failures due to bad username. So just in case there's a live password spray attack on some of your accounts, you'll be able to get notified about that in real time, because we are tracking both failures due to bad password as well as due to bad username. Okay. Not just this, we have another category of logon reports called the local logon and logoff that could even track user work hours. Okay. So if you want to know what is the active time of the user in a session, what is the idle time, and how long was the session for, you get to know about all that in the user work hours report category. Okay. Let me show you a report by accessing ADR Plus. All right. So these are the two categories that I was referring to. Okay. With just 4 event IDs, you'll be able to arrive at least 20 different real-time auditing profiles. So when you expand user logon category, you have all this. And when you go to local logon and logoff, you have something called user work hours. So if you're trying to understand the work hours of a bunch of users, let's say I'm going to select 5 users, okay? And I'd like to know their work hours. So the first user is AD manager. I see that the total work hours of that user is 27 minutes and 53 seconds. The first in time and the last out time of the user is mentioned here. And you have you have the date of the session, and you look at the active hours and the idle hours of the user. So when the idle hours are 0, you know that the session has been active for the entire duration. Okay. So whereas in this case, a session initiated on the 23rd of April 2020, the session lasted for 4 hours, 11 minutes, and 27 seconds. Okay. So it was from 6:43 in the morning to 10:54, but the user's active hours was only 3 hours and 47 minutes. The user was idle for almost 23 minutes. Okay. So you'll be able to gain such insights about the actions, and you'll also be able to get more insights pertaining to the logon activity of the users if you drill down to any of the reports. Let's say you're trying to track the remote logon activity of your users. Okay, you have the remote desktop service activity for that. If your users are trying to log on via VPN and you're trying to understand when do they log in and what time did they log in and all that. So there you have detailed information pertaining to remote desktop services activity or remote logon activity right here. Okay, all kinds of information. And you'll also be able to find out whether it's a cached log on or whether it's a remote interactive activity from the report itself. Okay, so we are talking about gaining insights just by tracking 4 event IDs. Not just that, the application is also capable of auditing your Azure module. So if you want to know who's logging into Azure and what time did they log in, we have a category for that as well. All right. Now, the third alarm is something pertaining to groups. Let me tell you something here. When it comes to groups, every Active Directory infrastructure has some common groups like your domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, DNS admins, okay? And it also has some other high privilege groups like application admin ITDA. This is a custom group that I've created, but it is a high privilege group. So are you tracking these groups in real time? So if I add a user to domain admin or remove a user from domain admin, are you getting notified about this action in real time? Do you receive an SMS notification? Okay. Now ADR Plus actually helps you track that. Let me tell you how ADR Plus helps you do that. Okay. Now, if you go to the configuration tab in AD Audit, we have 2 kinds of profiles. You could notice that we have alert profiles, and then you have the report profiles. Now, the report profiles is basically you telling the software what to capture. An alert profile is you telling the software for what criteria you need to be notified. Okay, so you'd like to reduce the noise in terms of alerting. You can basically create an alert profile and refine it as per your requirement. So I'm just going to be explaining the alarm that I've set for group modification. Okay. Most of these categories are out of the box. Okay. For example, groups deleted, groups created in an OU. All these are out of the box reporting categories, but I have created my own custom reporting profiles, such as finance managers audit. So I have a group called finance managers. Every time someone is added or removed from the finance managers group, I get to know about it. Okay. Now, similarly, I have this reporting profile called users added or removed from admin groups. Now, when I expand that report profile, I just want you to take a look at the screen for a quick second. The category is group modification. The actions that I'm tracking under group modification is really simple. I'm not looking for group deleted or group undeleted or group moved. I'm just looking for member removed from the security group or member added to the security group. Okay, just two actions. And what are the groups that are under tracking? I have the administrators, DNS administrators, domain administrators, and I also have a custom group. You can add as many number of groups that you want here. Okay? And let me tell you what happens now. So if I actually open up domain admins and I go to the members, and let's say I add a user to the domain admins group, okay? I'm adding a user called Brandon here. So Brandon is a regular user. So if I add a user, Brandon is right here. I've added him to the domain admins group. When I hit apply and OK, the auditing profile that I have set inside of AD Audit Plus captures the events in real time. So if I go to the home tab now and I take a look at the recent alert section, I have an alert which says member Brandon Curry was added to the domain admins group by Vivin-143. That's my account. And you see that the date is right here. So this is what I'm talking about when it comes to real-time tracking. Okay. So for any change, any critical change that happens to your groups, please get to know about them in real time. And AD Audit Plus can help you do that. All right, so let's now quickly jump to unsecure LDAP bindings, okay? Let me tell you something here, okay? Let me tell you something really, really important. Okay, now, this is my 2012 R2 server, and this is also a domain controller, okay? Now, how do you know whether this server is allowing unsecure LDAP binds? Now, what does unsecure LDAP binds means is, let me just give you a quick introduction about unsecure LDAP binds because I think it's really important. Now, what is LDAP binding? Well, clients and applications authenticate with Active Directory using LDAP bind operations. So it's a way of communicating, right? Now, there are 4 types of binds: simple LDAP bind, unsigned SASL LDAP bind, signed SASL LDAP bind, and LDAP S bind. Now, from the color coding, the first 2 are unsecure LDAP binds, and the last 2 are secure LDAP binds. Okay. Now, what happens if your domain controller is using an unsecure LDAP bind? What is the risk? Well, if your domain controller is allowing unsecure LDAP binds from clients, what that means is credentials are transferred over the network in clear text. So if I type my username and password from a client and that goes to your server, credentials are transferred to the network over the network in clear text. So this, if someone is actually performing a man-in-the-middle attack, they actually get to know the passwords in clear text. Okay? And if it's a second kind of bind, then the client and the server bind operation does not require signing, which means there's no authenticity. Any client that is even not part of your network can actually take part of the network communication. Okay? So you don't want these 2 things to be happening in your infrastructure. And how do you find out whether these 2 things are happening? Well, your domain controller generates an event, or in fact 2 events, 2887 and 2889. Your domain controller logs these 2 events if you have unsecure binds in your infrastructure, okay? And it's really important for you to see this. And let me show you how AD Audit Plus captures the information for you, okay? So if I go to AD Audit and I go to the reporting part here, and I search for unsecure, I search for the keyword unsecure, and I have unsecure LDAP binds as a category under LDAP auditing. You see that the number of daily unsecure LDAP binds, the report gets generated for the last 30 days. And I told you, if you have this event getting logged in your domain controller, which means the client is allowing unsecure LDAP bind operation. Now, one good thing is the problem is not worse. Okay? It's just 2887 and it's not 2889. Okay? 2887 and not 2889. Now, what that means is the number of simple binds is 1, which is unsecure. Thankfully, there are no binds without signing. There are no unsigned binds, which is good. So if I have 1 and 1 here, then the problem could be worse. Okay. So you'll have to look for 2887, and these events do not get logged by default. You'll have to enable certain type of logging in order to track whether your domain controller is actually doing this. So if you need to know what to enable, where to enable in order to get these events, please make use of the chat window and send a text to me. I'll be able to share the documentation on how to enable logging for 2887 and 2889. And if you're using Active Directory, if you have a domain controller, you need to watch out for 2887 and 2889. And please drop a message to me in order to, so that I can share the information pertaining to how do you enable logging in your domain controllers for 2887 and 2889. All right. The last alarm that I want you to set is pertaining to PowerShell. Okay. Now, all of us know that PowerShell can be weaponized, right? So what do I mean by PowerShell can be weaponized is if I execute a script and the name of the script is usercreation.ps1, okay? And the idea of the script, the name of the script is for creating users, but what if inside the script, I have written a malicious piece of code that could actually delete 5 or 10 of your user accounts? Okay? How do you actually find that out? Okay? Just the name of the script itself is not going to help you find out whether the script is legit or whether the script is kind of tricky, right? So you'll have to know what is what. That's why I really believe that auditing PowerShell is important. You need to understand the metadata of the script. Let me tell you how AD Plus can help you audit PowerShell usage in your infrastructure. All right, again, go to the reporting section of AD Audit. You have a section for PowerShell auditing right here. You'll be able to audit process, script blocks that are executed, modules that are executed. And let me show you one example here. All right, so I see that there are modules loaded by the user account AD manager, and I see that there are modules executed by user Harry. So this is quite suspicious. In the last 24 hours, I see that 2 users have executed PowerShell. So what I need to do now is I need to first understand what exactly was in the script. Okay, so I see that the user AD manager has executed the script on the 3rd of, on the 2nd of September, actually. And then we have the script being executed from a new location. And one thing that you'll have to note is you also get to know the path or the function of the script, right? And you also get to know from where was the script executed. Was it run from a server? If it was run from a server, what was the location of the script? And now once you get to know about all that, the next thing that you need to know is, well, you need to know what was in the script, okay? So that's when the script data part becomes of use to you for investigation. So FAP event.ps1 is the name of the script. This could be something. So when you just hit details, you get to know the metadata of the script. So you know that, well, user AD manager has executed a script and the script has done something to your organization, and you know the actual function of the script that was included. Okay? So this is why I really believe that you should be auditing PowerShell in order to know what's going on in the infrastructure in terms of PowerShell usage. Okay? Process, script, and module logging is what we're talking about. All right. Now, so far we've talked about setting alarms and all that, which is good, right? But Microsoft has a story to tell. This, in fact, is by the way, an actual story. Okay. Now, according to Microsoft, the image that you're seeing on the screen is not made by me. It is from Microsoft. And according to Microsoft, For a person to actually compromise your Active Directory infrastructure, it takes them less than 48 hours, okay? So if I am a regular user, I'm trying to get into your organization, I'm trying to intrude your organization, it takes me less than 48 hours to reach from a normal user to a domain admin, less than 2 days, okay? But the unfortunate part of this event is it takes more than 200 days for the organization to realize that their domain admin account has been compromised. Now, how long does it take for a regular user to reach domain admin? Less than 48 hours. But how long does it take for the organization to realize that the event has happened? More than 200 days, and it varies by industry. And this is from Microsoft. Now, the missing piece here is, despite setting all the alarms in real time, the missing piece is the accuracy in decoding behavior, right? Now, what is the accuracy in decoding behavior? Let's talk about an example. I'll give you my username and password, and I'll give you my laptop, and I ask you to log on to my laptop using my username and password for 60 minutes, okay? Now, your behavior on my laptop for 60 minutes is going to be very different from my behavior on my laptop, right? Even though it's the same computer and even though it's the same username and password, we are two different individuals operating, right? So even if someone has actually compromised some of your accounts and they have actually gained access to your infrastructure, their behavioral model is going to be very different from a regular user's behavioral model, okay? So the missing piece in the puzzle is to decode the difference or the anomalies in behavior. That's the whole idea. Even though it's the same username and password, we'll have to understand the deviations in behavior. That's when machine learning can really help you. And AD Audit Plus has a machine learning module that can help you track deviations in time, count, and pattern, okay? And the machine learning module is called User Behavior Analytics. Let me show you how it looks. So you have the analytics module right here. So we have the manual auditing process, reporting profiles, file server audit, and all that. And you also have the analytics part. The analytics part actually helps you decode patterns or decode behavioral differences. So, I mean, differences based on logon time, any unusual logon activity on a host. Let's say you are a regular user and you perform unusual number of management activity on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock, okay? You delete a couple of accounts, or you try to copy some files which you have not done before, or this is the first time that you're accessing a confidential server, right? First time host accessed by the user. All kinds of deviations will be captured by AD Audit Plus and it'll be flagged, okay? And based on the deviations in the behavior, it even helps you track new processes on a server. So let's say some of your employees download a malicious content, and that actually is a virus, and the virus actually starts acting in your infrastructure, which most of the time is in the form of a new process getting generated on a server. So whenever there's a new process on a server that has never been there before, you also will get to be alerted about that as well. Now, based on the anomalies, we have the risk assessment section. The risk assessment section is going to help you track the overall risk posture of your users, okay? So some of the risk profiles is users connected to most assets, high activity volume of accounts. Now, privileges utilized by the user or first time utilizing a privilege. So let's say I'm Vivin and I'm a regular user in your infrastructure and my account is compromised and you do not know that, okay? But if Vivin's account is going to utilize a high privilege action or high privileged account in order to perform certain actions, that get captured under first time utilizing a privilege, okay? Now this, in an overview, is what is AD Audit Plus for you, okay? Now AD Audit Plus helps you audit, alert, archive, and also has a machine learning analytics involved, so for you to know what is it going on in your organization. Okay? We are talking about real-time alerts for almost all the components in your infrastructure, not just for your Active Directory, but also for your Azure portal as well. Okay, so that's pretty much about it for me for AD audit, but we still have other logs to focus on, for which I have Siddharth waiting to give you a very informative session. So I see I have a lot of questions to answer. I'll be definitely getting back to those questions. And in case you need to drop an email to me pertaining to anything that you saw or you'd like to see, vivin.ks@manageengine.com is the email address, right? So I'm just going to pass on the mic to Siddharth so that he'll be able to give you some insights on SIEM. So far, we've just focused on security log auditing. Now we'll shift gears and we'll talk about SIEM auditing, right? So please stay tuned. You have a power packed session coming your way.